So I just recorded week 8, and I said at the end of that, if you got to week 9, to let me know. And as I did that, I thought, you know what? I should just go ahead and do week 9. That way, students who want to work ahead and kind of finish out the semester, because I get it, like at the end of the semester, everybody throws a project. And normally in my classes, I try to put them before the end, but because this is a 9-week compressed, I couldn't do that. So I want to go over a few things just to give you what you need to do for the final project. So we're going to do a couple things and I'll just describe it here, what I've provided to you in written form. Okay, so what you're going to do, and let me just show you. So all I have up, not all, what I have up here is I have my private repo where I have my project and I have my images and my up to P1, P2, P3. The only thing you have to bring over is the project folder. Don't copy it all over. I want you to copy only the images and the P3. So what I would do, I would come over to my public repo and I'd create a new folder and I'd call it project. And then in that project, I would create another new folder called images. And then I'd also create another new folder under project called final. Okay, so then what you can do here is you will copy your whatever your HTML, your CSS, right? And that README file will then all be copied into that final directory. And then whatever was in images, copy all those images. Now you could just take the folder, absolutely, when you're copying the images. I wouldn't necessarily do that here. That actually has a little bit of the older structure. I actually updated all the references, but didn't remove that folder yet. But more importantly, just to know that you'll be copying over the contents. Now, could you copy over the P3 folder and then just rename it final? Absolutely, you could. So, however you want to do it. That's the steps you want to do. And I gave it in writing here, but sometimes in writing, students are like, so I try to do both. Give it to you in writing and show you what you need to do. Now, ultimately, what you end up having here is that GitHub IO URL. And remember, this was in your public, and this will be your, whatever your public repo was, final, and then project. If you give us that URL, and it's good actually to, in this reply, you could test that to see if that's ready to go, because the timeline between when you may do attendance and when you do the project might be relatively short. So you could actually do that to have other people or myself test to make sure that URL is working. Okay, now it's not going to work until you copy everything over. Okay, but it wouldn't hurt to do that right now. Okay, and then you commit with setup for final complete and URL working, or, if it's not, let us know. But now, before I get into the end of the semester, because I have changed something there, I just want to talk about for a moment what you're going to do here for the last, for the last discussion. So there's one thing you're going to do is you're going to create, and some of you actually had created this, so if you ended up creating a form for contact or some kind of form, then create a new page, right? So create a new page called contact and link it in the footer, right? Link it from your footer and include it in your sitemap, right? So create a new page. Now, when you create new pages at this point, you should be bringing over your design. It shouldn't be a standalone page. It should look like your page. So it should have the menu. It should have all the things that you've implemented as far as a design pattern, right? So it's not as if it's separate. So this should look like the rest of your site. Right, and then fill out a form that the user would use to contact you. And I gave you some requirements: field set, label. And again, a few of you actually already did this, I noticed already, right? Before the form, write something about yourself and why you created the site. Make sure you style your form. That will be the other thing. And then do commit message, form done. Make sure, and this is what I was saying before, make sure it's the same style as the rest of your site. It has the menu at the top. It has the footer at the bottom. It still validates. It has, the CSS and all the images are linked and working correctly. All right. So that's the one page you're going to add here. And then, on your sitemap, because we're adding a new page, you got to add that there as well. And then to get all the points possible, in addition to what you've already done above, you know, make sure you're responsive. And this is already something we've done, but if you missed it, so if you missed anything about week 8, make sure you fix that. Use responsive images. We learned about that. So if you haven't already, and I talked about this because I know I just finished week 8, but having written some CSS that then allows that, and we learned how to write CSS for responsive images, right? And then one example of using the background size cover. Now, in my case, and I want to actually cover this because of our new folder structure. So for me, that was my image. And so when you use the URL, because we're actually backing up to, remember when you're writing, when you're referencing images in CSS, because for me, now this is true because I created, and you really should have, and if you hadn't, I probably should have caught it, a CSS directory inside, now in this case it's the final, right? The final subdirectory, or for P3, you should have had a CSS directory. So that you have to say, okay, back up and 1 / it says go back 1, and that would put you in where all the HTML, and then / 1 more would take you up. So you're actually traversing up with this kind of URL, or this URL, to tell it where to find that image. Okay. So that's an important part when you're doing, so you need at least one example of using the background image and the image and the size of cover in that case. And I had shown you my site already in that other one, but I just wanted to talk about this. And really, if you didn't create the CSS directory, you should create it now, because I'll probably check for that now that I'm thinking about it. And it's just good habit to get into as well. Okay? All right, so if you didn't already, and make sure you did, most of you I checked the titles already, but make sure you have a description of each page. And like I said, fix any issues you have, and then report any changes you made here. All right, so this is now where you're ready to post your URL. And this is the URL I suggested you do in attendance, so you make sure you have it right. Right? And then I want you in your reply to actually score your knowledge of HTML and CSS when you started this course, right? And then here at the end, like, how would you say, how far have you brought your score, your understanding of this, right? So all of this work above is 80 points, and then you'll get 20 points for reviewing, like we did in week 4, reviewing, well, week 3 and 4, reviewing somebody's site, and give them real feedback about, and again, if somebody already has feedback, go find somebody else's. And in order to facilitate this, I realized I needed to change something, and I'm going to do that right now on attendance. So all right, coming back here. So that's going over the work, and so any late work, it needs to be submitted. And now I'm coming back to the end of the semester. So if you have late work, you need to have already submitted it by May 15th. That's a Wednesday, by 9 o'clock. And then your final URL needs to be posted by 11 a.m. And the reason I'm saying that is it gives everybody at least a chance to go in and do some review, right? And again, the sooner you post your final URL, which is part of why I was encouraged to go ahead and release this a little earlier than normal. I hope students aren't waiting till 11, but if you are, or if you're waiting till the 15th, you have until 11 to post your URL, and then you have until noon to post your review. Okay? So that's the process for the end of the semester, and I just now went and updated week 7 to modify that, because I realized I wanted to have a little more time for people to do those reviews. All right, so the thing I wanted to say, and I've said part of this before, but just thank you, right? I really appreciate getting to know many of you, looking at the work that you've done, I always like this class because I've been back in the rotation fairly recently and teaching it, and it is a really good. The more I do programming, and I know I've said this, JavaScript programming, the more I realize I need to learn more HTML and CSS, refine my CSS skills as well. So thank you, and I hope you walk away having a better understanding of these topics. So there's a couple things in your reply, post that URL so that we kind of see that you have, and I can look at that and click on it and we can see you don't have to have done all the work for the final, but you have it set up and you're at least ready to go start working on the final steps, the things in the final steps you need to do, like the things I just went over. But in your reply, in addition to that, consider, and I do this in my programming class as well, like what, because you are the best indicator. You're at the best place. Let me say it this way. You are at the best place at this final step in this class to tell students, my future students, not my future students, but, well, they're mine, but I don't like to use the my possessiveness, but students that are taking this class in the future, like what are the things that really you may have done well that you felt like, yeah, this is how I stayed on track, or what you would tell them if you kind of got off track, and why, just give them advice. And I honestly do use this when I start, and I will use this for the beginning of the fall 2024 semester for students, because you really are some of the best feedback for those students, because oftentimes students will listen to other students just because student to student, peer to peer can be really helpful. So your feedback to that future student in this class can be really helpful. So I ask you in the reply, would you do that for purposes of which I've already covered? All right, I think that's it, which would allow me to release this and hopefully have you work ahead if that works. All right, have a great rest of your semester. Office hours still pertain. Finals weeks is always a little different, right? Office hours aren't necessarily what they are. Tutor hours, I think, also change. So that's another reason to work ahead. Reach out to me, though, if you need help. I'll probably hold Monday, Tuesday regular office hours for me, though, just so that you know in case you're at that point and you need help. All right, have a good one. I'll talk to you later. Have a great summer, by the way.